tardiness, but I'd like to call the meeting to order at 5:12 and introduce the board members. If we could start with Dan.
Yes, Dan Rosignol, Northwest Addison at large.
Joe Markowski, resident of Bridport and Workforce Investment Board member.
Steve Rooney from Starksboro, representing MAUSD.
Nick Colston from Shoreham, representing ACSD.
Steve Orzak, representing ACSD, a resident of Middlebury and vice chair.
Sharon Meacham, East Middlebury, Workforce Development.
Tricia Allen, Middlebury, ACSD.
Will Biederman, Middlebury, Workforce Development.
Nicole McTavish, Superintendent.
Wendy Pratt, Assistant Director at the Career Center.
And
Rebecca Goulet, Business Manager at the Career Center.
And
Oh, Patrice Alexander, Administrative Assistant, sorry.
Linda.
Linda, that's
Linda Barrett, Clerk.
great. It looks like we have some guests this evening. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dave Cole from Bay Ridge, also on the Migratory Steering Committee.
Ken Schmidt, Council Career Center Co-op Coordinator. Michael Giorgio, Middlebury.
Great. At this time, we need to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to do so?
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay, passes by unanimous consent. Public comment on agenda items only. This is a time for any public in the room to make comment on any item that we have on the agenda. There will be a later public comment period at 6 o'clock that will allow people to comment on items that are not on the agenda. So is there anyone present in the room or online that would like to make a comment, public comment?
About something on the agenda.
On something on the agenda. Okay, seeing none. Patrice, is there anyone online? I don't.
There's nobody online.
Okay, great. Let's move on. Correspondence. I don't believe we have any correspondence today. No. And the consent agenda. Normally we have, on the consent agenda, we have voted as a block on those. Is there anyone that has any comment on those, including the minutes? So, if,
I think the only thing is that Nick wanted to have a final act.
Yes,
oh, okay.
the
fall on the
final
sword,
act
Nick.
of reading the director's orders. Sorry, Vice Chair.
No, please.
General Fund, $106,001. Payroll, these are for January, $193,141. Adult education, $670. Enterprise revolving, $12,574. Student activities, $741. Nothing for the birth. And the energy project, $21,324. For a total of $334,455.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
I did it.
Is there any other business, or could I have a motion to approve the entire consent agenda?
So moved, Steve.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, by unanimous consent, the consent agenda is consented to. And at this time, hopefully we've made up some time there. We're ready for the presentation of the co-op group. I'm assuming. Yep. Turn that over to you.
All right. Well, and I wanted to start with thanking all of you for your service, this month and every month. It's great to have you supporting our schools and our students. Superintendent McTavish asked me to speak to you briefly about cooperative education at the Career Center. And I've got a slideshow just to keep me on track, and also I'm anticipating that there will likely be questions you may have either now or in the future that we don't have time for this evening, and there are links in the slideshow to additional resources. Next slide. So what I'm hoping to hit on tonight is how the reasons and types of co-op vary based on student needs, what some of the legal and regulatory concerns are, and how we address those. A few specific examples of opportunities students have experienced in the past, and what the process of setting a co-op looks like. The overarching reason for having a co-op program is because research shows that it helps students be more successful in college and employment if they have experiences in the workplace aligned with their career choices before graduation. More specifically, the reason for an individual student to participate in co-op varies with their progression through the 4 identified stages of career development. At the Career Center, we deal primarily in career exploration and career preparation. Career awareness is something that typically children develop in primary grades. They see family members going off to work, they hear conversations about work, they see people at work in the community. Not all of our students come from homes where people leave to go to work in the morning, and so occasionally we have, you know, the unusual student that really needs career awareness and orientation. Similarly, we've had students who have been very successful in the workplace. I'm thinking of a student a couple of years ago who was on an extended co-op at G-Stone Motors. He was very much dialed into a Ford dealership career path, and he used his time at the Career Center when he was in our building to work on Ford factory training. Really, he was in that continuing education phase of his career already. Next slide. The types of experiences that we set up really depend on what those career development stages were. Job shadows are typically in the career exploration phase. Unpaid work, and the shadows generally I think of as being anywhere from 1 to 10 hours. Get yourself familiar with what goes on in that particular workplace. Unpaid work experiences can be either about career exploration or about starting to learn technical skills. In those situations, a student is actually hands-on. They're not just observing, and that gives them a little more sense of what the workday is really like. I think of those generally in the 10 to 30 hour range. And then we have students who engage in paid work experience for an extended period of time. And they're really doing that in order to advance their technical skills, build relationships with employers, build professional networks so that they really hit the ground running when they either exit for college or exit for a career. We do some with pre-apprenticeship, registered apprenticeships. Those are typically, we've done in the past only in construction, and briefly I think ULT Danforth had a pre-apprenticeship program going in early childhood education. So legal and logistical. Any co-op is a balance of educational opportunities and safety, with safety being a guiding consideration, much as it is in an auto shop or the culinary kitchen. However, the laws regarding hazardous occupations for minors are different in the workplace than in school, and this gets a little confusing. For instance, a student in our auto program can and does do forklift training, gets a OSHA forklift card, and they can operate a forklift in our auto or diesel shops, and they do. That same OSHA forklift card is invalid in the workplace until they turn 18. That is considered a hazardous occupation that does not have an exemption for minors. Child labor laws developed in the 20th century identify 17 occupational categories that are prohibited for employment of 16 and 17-year-olds in particular. However, there are 6 of those occupational categories that have exemptions for student learners enrolled in a vocational or career and technical education program. Taking advantages of those exemptions requires a specific hazardous occupations training plan to maximize the safety of the student and comply with federal regulations regarding the exemption. I typically write 2 or 3 of these per year, primarily for construction tech. And the Career Center has in the past contracted with the co-op coordinator for summer hours to provide the supervision of juniors in construction technology with plans to return as seniors, the opportunity to work in construction over the summer between their junior and senior years under the student learner exemption. Some of the other legal and logistical concerns: transportation, attendance and accountability is a big priority. The parents who entrust us with their children that we know where they are, and when they're going directly to a co-op, we're relying on employers to let us know when that student is there. Insurance, we carry off-site insurance for these through our standard BizBit policy, and then we have an additional insurance premium that we pay in order to contract for below the deductible. It's a fairly high deductible on the BizBit policy. And then I also work with employers to make sure that they're complying with Fair Labor Standards Act around minimum wage for students. There are 6 different tests that an intern has to make in order to be unpaid. Those primarily have to do with the experience having a primary focus of the educational opportunity for the student. If the student is producing something of significant value for the employer that outweighs that educational benefit, then it's time for them to be moved into a paid situation. So AOE oversight comes into this as well. I'm going to go back to my script for this. Primary sources of information about the Agency of Education and the agency's work-based learning are the agency's work-based learning manual, direct emails on specific topics, communications shared with the Vermont Cooperative Education Association, and experience working through prior year's comprehensive local needs assessments at the Career Center. While no single one of these sources of information is particularly comprehensive, their most consistent message, in my mind, has been the need for co-op placements to align with the student's program curriculum. I believe this is an important and worthwhile consideration, and one of the many differences which separate high school work-based learning from tech center co-op. Every year we're required to report co-op participation to the Agency of Education. Last year we reported 64 students participating in 83 placements at 42 different places of employment and logging over 2,400 hours on the job. Roughly 40% of program concentrators participated in a career work experience or career technical experience, that longer-term paid co-op, of more than 4 class periods in length. Some of the other frequently emphasized compliance guidelines offered by the agency have included that students be enrolled in a technical program, not a semester or year-long class designated as co-op, and that co-op must be coordinated by an individual with the work-based learner's education endorsement. So they stress that when a student is spending time in the Career Center, they're in a program, they're not in a separate section called co-op. Some schools, my understanding, have used that to try and keep their classes slightly over-enrolled and not go over limits on the number of students that can be in a shop setting or classroom setting for an instructor. Next slide. So the process for me always starts with an instructor recommendation. This is an online form that the instructors do. It gives me information about how the student's doing in class, how many days a week they can be out of the class and still meet the curriculum needs. Do they have any special medical or educational considerations? and what's their prior safety training been. After I receive that instructor recommendation, I meet with the student. We talk about where they are in that career progression. We don't talk about that. We talk informally, and I figure that out. But we then start looking for a job match. Sometimes a student comes to me with, I really want to go to this particular place. Other times it's, I'm really interested in avionics, but is there any place in Addison County I can learn that? Other times, they have a broad interest, and we try and dial in what can meet that particular need. The next step in the process is looking at scheduling and transportation. This is one of the areas where I think every tech center in the state really struggles with educational equity. The student who has access to their own transportation has educational opportunities for co-ops that the student without their own transportation does not. We do our best to provide transportation within a 10 or 15-minute radius of the Career Center, and we're fortunate to have a really large number of employers within that radius. But when a student wants to do a co-op in Chittenden County and they don't have their own transportation, it's really not something that we can provide. Permission and contracts. I have kind of a boilerplate contract that we start with, and then depending on the particular setting for this individual, work on how to adjust that to meet the particular setting, including the hazardous occupations contracts, which get considerably more complicated. The next step is the training plan. This is what matches the students' program learning targets with what they're going to be doing on the job, and use that for the employer to provide feedback to me and the program instructor on the students' progress meeting the learning targets of their curriculum. And that also gets fed back to me in employer evaluations, which we do periodically. I also have reflective conferences with the students. This is something that I kind of lifted from the service learning under the IB program at Middlebury. This is a component that they include in service learning. I had tried to have students do a Google form with a couple of sentences reflection, and really struggled with that. A lot of students don't reflect very deeply when they also have to write about it. And I found that going to an interview format, I really got a lot more depth of learning out of the students that way. Next slide. So I don't know how we're doing on time. I can.
You're good.
Okay, I'll take a little bit of time on each of these. I love this student's experience with us because she came to us in medical professions. They do a series of job shadows, mostly at Porter Medical, but also at some other providers, and she was totally dialed into labor and delivery. She really didn't want to bother going anywhere else other than labor and delivery. And she went through, we said, let's try some other things. And she ended up, after the experience, saying, I really want to be a pediatric nurse. Labor and delivery, there's really just this very intense but brief contact with the patient, and you don't see them during all the prenatal care. You don't see them after the child's delivered and they're getting pediatric care. And I found that for me, I really enjoyed the relationship building that goes into pediatric nursing, and what an incredibly valuable, it was not what she expected, but it was an incredibly valuable piece of learning for her to have before she goes off to college and on her career path. Next slide. This was a gentleman in our auto program who was really dialed into a career in aviation. He loved working on his own car, but in terms of co-op, he really wanted the exposure to the aviation world. He spent a semester at J&M Aviation, I guess it's just the title of their business, out at East Middlebury Airport. He just got done helping to put a $52,000 windshield in this twin-engine Beechcraft.
Wow.
Next slide. These are some students in our architecture and engineering program who had a semester-long co-op with Wood and Hammer in Moncton. They worked on shop drawings, proposals to clients, and here they are putting together an estimate, financial takeoff for a client's proposal. The Human Services program is one of the programs that does a really fabulous job of totally integrating the co-op experience into the curriculum of the program. Every morning as the students are going off, this week they'll have had a curriculum lesson over the course of the week, and they'll be looking for those particular things at their job placement the days of that week, and then every week it changes, so it's not uncommon for those students to be really dialed into how are the children's behaviors different on the first day back from vacation. So they're experiencing that themselves and also watching for that in others. Next slide. This young lady had a fall co-op at County Tire. She started in the tire room where they start pretty much all of our students, kind of the bottom of the totem pole. By the time she got done with the fall tire season, she was out of the tire room and helping a technician in his bay, getting those tires, getting the wheels off, checking brakes, that kind of thing, checking suspension, getting the tires to the tire room, and then sometimes doing the tires herself. After she was done at County Tire, she wanted more experiences, so she ended up doing job shadows at Green Mountain Avionics at the East Middlebury Airport, G-Stone Motors, Heritage Ford, and O'Reilly Auto Parts, I think were the places that she went to. Had great experience. I think every one of those employers said, how can we hire her? And then she went back for a spring co-op at County Tire, and was at the end of that spring semester, she was running her own bay, which is really a statement of arrival for an auto mechanic. Next. This was a gentleman that had a hazardous occupations exemption, so construction tech, there's a lot of safety and training around the use of power tools that fall under those hazardous occupations rules, so we had a whole graduated training plan for him to be trained on each tool in the Career Center, observed it work using that tool independently at the Career Center, trained again on the workplace. There are differences between tools, and then observed independently on the workplace as well. So he had a great experience with this employer. And this is one of the few students that we've had go into a registered apprenticeship program. It's something that's really a challenge for most of our students with a half-day program. This particular young man was at the high school completion program at Vermont Adult Learning, so he was basically working 32 hours a week for 8 hours a day with McIntyre Plumbing and Heating, and they had enrolled him in the apprenticeship program through Vermont Technical College. And there's some resources for you in your spare time. The last slide is just some thank yous to, these are just last year's educational partners. If I went back a year or two, I wouldn't be able to fit them all on the screen. And I would just open it up for questions if time's available.
We put us a little behind, but we can take a few questions if anybody's got any.
Not a question, but just comment. Thanks. That looks like an amazing opportunity for a lot of students. Thank you.
Do the students get to reflect to other students about their experiences and kind of move these things? How does that,
Yeah,
so they come back here?
That varies some program by program. I mean, as I mentioned, the Human Services, they're going to be all talking about their experience the next day. There's a process in the auto program that they do that. They formally present, what their work orders have been, what they've done, and then also the construction program. Some of the other programs, it's not as well. Medical professions, it's pretty formalized also. But It does vary, the format for that does vary, so.
As a student's experience, I think it really boosts the program and
Yeah.
certain aspects of the program, you know.
Yeah.
If working here was no fun,
Yeah.
we'd get around pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
On the other hand,
absolutely.
these
Absolutely.
places wanna hire, they have their pick if they treat these kids
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
One
Nick-
of the, go ahead.
I guess there was a slump during COVID.
Yes.
Have the numbers come back?
Yeah, we're pretty much back to pre-COVID levels. And yeah, it was some rough sledding for a couple of years there.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for your time. On to the next item on the agenda. These are discussion items. These are not things that we'll be voting on, but they are informational or items that the board needs to discuss. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that over to you.
Sure, so, once a year, there are a number of the, ends policies that you ask me to report on. And it's just me essentially stating that I am in compliance. So you have the document, that talks about the executive limitations for compensation and benefits, and that we are in compliance. So, that's just a piece that we do annually. You'll see a number of these, especially for new board members, you see a number of these come up over the course of the meetings that we have over the year, where, the ask from the board to the superintendent is simply to state that we are in fact in compliance. So, we are.
Yay.
I have one question.
Yes.
So number 4 says no contract obligations longer than 1 year. Have you found that difficult in any particular, for any particular contracts to maintain that? 'Cause I know we relaxed that age because of a couple carryover contracts.
Yeah, we haven't really experienced that here.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of outside contracted things. We do like control technologies and like the Royal Group, but we have been working with us so that we can do it on an annual basis.
Right.
Not crossing fiscal years is always our preference.
Yeah, okay.
And if I did have something like that, I would bring it to the board to explain the circumstance and
Right.
ask for a
Waiver.
exception, right? And that often happens when you have longer terms, like curricular purchases where you obligate funds over time, but we don't do a lot of that. Most of our curriculum is either developed by the instructors or by the state, or is an online curriculum that we pay an annual fee for.
Right,
Right.
thanks.
Were there any other questions? I do have a question. So something like the software contract for the new financial software, that runs over multiple years, does that fall under this, because
Go ahead.
it goes for multiple years?
So every year we have a contract renewal
Oh, okay.
with support that's on an annual basis, so we don't cross that fiscal year.
Okay, great, great.
And we do, many vendors are very used to this kind of a clause, so we're very upfront saying we cannot obligate more than 1 year.
Great. Okay, on to the new treasurer.
Go ahead.
So I've had some conversations with Jane Beck, and she has started talking about retiring as the treasurer. So we'll need to try to recruit someone in the future. I don't know how soon that'll be. She is thinking, her family is probably going to be building a house outside of the Addison County District this summer, so I just wanted to alert the board to that, and we could put feelers out if they know of anybody, or we could get them connected with Jane, or I'm happy to talk to them, but it's just something as a collective board we should start thinking about.
Is there any way to make that information public as to what a treasurer does and that kind of thing? So that people can look at it from the outside?
Yeah, we can get the generic job description from the AOE,
Okay.
the state. I just kind of wanted to start talking about it. I'm not really sure where Jane is right now, but I thought it would be important for the group to know that she is thinking about that.
Sure, okay. Everybody's next favorite topic, the 6-semester average.
We've attached it here, it's the same as it was last month. The 6-semester average only changes twice a year, but the board had asked for that to be included, so we have included it.
And that's what's in this, the small text here? Is that this one?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
To update everyone, there was a meeting of legislators that the VSBA sponsored, and I did ask about Career Center funding. What Peter Conlon and I can't remember the woman from the Senate, what they said was that they are looking at removing the 6-semester average as a funding mechanism because it has not kept up with the times, shall you say. But other than that there have been several people with agendas to change Career Center funding, but they are not looking at them right now at the legislative level, so. But the 6-semester average is one thing that they are looking at, so. Okay. Are we ready to move on to our action agenda? I understand that there are personnel resignations.
Right, we had our registrar, Daniela Zolo, she resigned, but she resigned just a couple of days before our last board meeting, after we had already warned. So I wasn't able to report on it at the last board meeting, so I'm reporting on it now.
Okay. And, oh, that's right, something else. Okay, yeah, that was the only one. Board member consideration. This is,
So this is an action item, do we need to take an action?
I don't think we do, because do we?
So you have scheduled an executive session to consider 2 applicants for the opening that Nick will be creating and the opening that we still have from Dr. Love exiting. And the board will consider those and make a determination whether or not you, A, are ready to make a choice or need more information or a process or whatever the board shall choose. But we do, in your packet, you have 2 resumes and to consider and discuss in executive session.
I think the question was,
Oh, sorry.
do we have to accept the resignation? Because normally doesn't the board vote to accept a resignation?
That's right, and we haven't we haven't officially accepted.
Yeah, that's what that was the
Yeah.
question that I had was,
Yeah.
are we ready to do that
I
yet?
thought we did Nick's before, did we
Yes,
not?
you've
Yes.
done me.
Yeah.
We did
Okay,
Nick,
yes.
but
I was
the,
like,
I'm talking about
Oh.
I'm talking about the registrar.
Oh, okay.
personnel.
Yeah, I think that's why.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I got the 2 issues confused there because we kind of jumped to the board.
yes.
No.
So do you want just a motion for that?
I don't think we did it last time.
I don't.
And I don't remember seeing it in the minutes, so I think we officially have to do it now. So I would entertain a motion to accept the resignation of
Daniela Zolo.
Daniela
Daniela
Zolo
Zolo.
as the registrar.
I make that motion. I think Linda's got it all right and doing.
Bill second.
Yes, I heard. Did you hear that, Linda?
Yes.
Thank you.
And as a point of, sorry.
Yeah.
As a point of order, often those are done under a consent agenda. That's been a different process here. I'm interested in moving it to a consent agenda item in the future so we don't have to call out people's names in public.
Okay.
If that would be amenable to the board.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we can do, whatever it would take to do that, I'm not sure that we have to have a resolution to do
No,
that.
you just have to,
We just have to
Yeah,
agree
say it's
that we're
okay.
going to do that,
That's
so.
common practice as far as
Right.
I know.
Right,
Right.
but since we now have a motion on the
Right.
table and it's been seconded, is
Yeah,
there any
It's
discussion?
on our agenda this way. so
Right.
we should-
Okay, not seeing any discussion. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Or are there any abstentions? Okay, so by unanimous consent, the resignation is accepted. Now on to board member consideration. We have 2 positions open now, one of which we have to appoint as a board. The second one, the ACSD at large, is done by ACSD because that is a separate process. So this board does not have to do anything, similar to board appointment, from off of ascending board.
Right.
So the at-large member works just like a board appointment. It's handled through the sending school. So that is not what we're talking about here. But we do have Dr. Love's resignation that we will need to fill. So was there anything that you wanted to say about that? Because I I'm not aware of any candidates that have been brought forward.
You have 2 resumes in your packet.
That,
And
okay.
that's for executive session discussion.
I see.
And it is, I've been talking to some colleagues, it is common if you have, even though we don't appoint the board member from ACSD, we do have members of the ACSD board on this board.
Yes.
So sometimes they take those candidates back to their board. So that's just a piece of knowledge. Point of order for you.
And just as a point of information, I'm not aware that we have identified anyone yet for ACSD. Some people have been approached, but no one has indicated that they. Now, the way ACSD handles it is that can be a nomination from the floor at the annual meeting. So there may be a candidate that comes forward. After that, then it would be an appointment that would be after the annual meeting. But you have to go through the annual meeting to see if anyone wants to nominate from the floor. And if that leaves that position vacant, my understanding is then we appoint from ACSD board. So
Yeah. And that's for the at-large position.
that's for the at-large position, yes. But Dr. Love, that's us. So although this is listed under an action item, we are going to discuss that in the executive session at the end, unless there's.
And we would take action when we come out?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. On to the policy section of the agenda, and I wanted to explain a couple of things first. There were 3 policies that we were looking at. There was one about public comment, A20. There was also one about public complaints against personnel, that was B22. Both of them have been removed from the agenda because they apparently were approved in the package of policies that the bulk acceptance, because we were looking at them, looking at adding them to the database, and they were already there. And so it looks like they've already been adopted. It's the same language that we were looking at in the committee. And so we said, there's no reason to go through this exercise again. We just approved those same policies a couple of months ago, 6 months ago now, maybe. Yes.
So I did have the one comment I had about the complaints against personnel
Mhm.
was it didn't seem that the language was tailored toward chain of command.
On the one that,
Did that get modified in the one that we approved?
on the one that we approved, or the one that was in the database?
The one, well, I'm assuming the one in the database is the one that we approved.
Well, the one in the data,
The one out of VSBA's database
yes.
is incorrect. That was in our last packet. The language was not changed from the VSBA.
Right.
And I mentioned that I'd made that comment in a prior review of that,
Mm-hmm.
and I was curious whether that change got made during that period of time. So if you found it was already in our library,
Yes, I,
had it been fixed in that instance?
yeah, I can't speak
Okay.
specifically to that because I did read the policy, but I can't say for sure. So I would hate to say that, yep, it's there, or
Yeah,
nope,
yeah.
it's not there,
Right.
because I don't remember.
Okay.
Because when we found it, we looked at it, and no one said anything about is it the VSBA language or is it specific to us? So I would have to go back and look at that to address your question.
Okay.
So we decided not to move those forward because it looked like they were already there, and that seemed like it was a little superfluous. The third policy about security cameras is the one that Dan was reviewing. When he looked at it, he said that there were updates. Was it the
Actually,
VSBA?
Nick pointed that out, that
VSBA.
there was an update.
Yeah,
I was able to find that.
and so Dan looked at them and modified the policy, which you'll see in your packet. And that's why, even though it has already been reviewed as a first reading, we reset that and said that it's gonna be a first reading again because the changes, although relatively small, are significant enough to cause it to have to be rewarned and read. So, although you have seen the security cameras one, it has changed, so I would encourage you to look at that again for the next meeting. Again, this is a first reading. We do not have to vote on that tonight. It was under the action agenda because it was intended to be a second reading. And, yeah, we moved it back.
So I'll make a motion to table.
Okay, that's a good idea.
I'll second that.
Okay. Okay, is there any discussion, or, yeah, move second, yeah, discussion. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, by unanimous consent, we are tabling the first reading of F-26 security cameras. Okay, that concludes the business, and now
I
we're,
have one small suggestion.
oh, yes.
When we get these, even though it's a minor change, because I'm doing a bulk review for
Yeah,
non-aid on these as well.
strike through and bold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trying to give people a sense of what changed.
Yeah.
So especially for the warning version, it can be messy. You know, it can be, you can show the strike throughs, you can show where there's new language.
Highlights.
And as you know, VSBA does not provide that.
They don't,
When
they're talking
they,
about doing it, but they haven't.
yes, I've complained to them multiple times, saying that this is how things are normally done. Can you please do that for us? Because
Yeah,
this makes our job much more difficult if we don't have the strike-through bold version.
right, otherwise we're not really sure what
We're not sure what we're voting on and what's changed. Yes,
Okay. That's-
thank you.
There's an application in Microsoft Word called Compare View. or Compare Mode. I'll
Google
try it.
Docs has it as well.
Okay.
I've been using it to do the same exact thing you're
Yeah, we
doing
should
now.
provide a strike-through.
Yeah.
Okay, but I also submitted a strike-through version of what changes I made, so people would not think I went wholesale. Move things around. That's out there, if you want.
Has that version been going to the PGC committee first, the strike-through version?
Well, Dan's is the first strike-through version that we've got. So he just showed us this one at the last meeting, so,
All right.
okay?
Yep.
Okay, is there any other business? All right, let's move on to the informational agenda. This is the time for public comment. This is time for the public to comment on items raised, any item not on the agenda. Please note that no items raised during public comment may be acted upon by the board unless it is on a posted agenda. We cannot take action on an item that has not been warned. After the speaker has made his or her statement, he or she will be seated with no further debate, dialogue, or comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And do we have any public comment?
I'm on the Makery Steering Committee. As I mentioned, there's a feeling on the Makery Steering Committee that we'd just like more information about the Leahy grant process and spending. And so whoever at the Career Center can provide that, we're ready whenever. I'm happy to help as well, help with decisions on equipment. I think there's some unease that things are getting cut that were important to certain people in the Makery, and we don't have enough information.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? And has anyone popped up online, Patrice? Or?
Yes.
Nope. Okay, so that concludes our public comment. Would anyone like to take on 4-1 governing style?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Hey,
So, the meeting was well organized. Having attended several hundreds of them, I think the most very interesting is the student presentations and presentations from leaders and teachers, and it was nice to hear Len. And I think that keeps the board members involved in the activity of the center, rather than just talking about our own paperwork. So tonight was great, and thank you, Len. And good luck.
Good luck to you.
thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay, that concludes the informational agenda. If anyone would like to move, we do have some executive session items, so we need to move into executive session. Could I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second?
Second, and all in favor? Aye. We move into executive session at 5:57 for